She was in she was in yeah.
And if it looks like I'm talking to myself, it's because I'm sitting in a conference room with some people here in the CTSI suite. So don't be alarmed. You do not need to download EndNote right now. I'm going to share my screen and do kind of a demo. And then I do have a Word doc I created with instructions step by step. And this will be recorded. So feel free to follow along if you'd like to, if you've already downloaded EndNote, but you'll have those resources available to you after. So this might be a good time for us to get started. So I'm Erica Francis. Thank you so much for joining today. I am the administrative director for our Penn State Clinical and Translational Science Institute. I have been with the College of Medicine since 2011. I've served in various roles from research coordinator to project manager to project director, and now in my current role. So I have used EndNote from the beginning. It is one of my absolute favorite tools and skill sets that I've learned only because it's very user-friendly and it makes your life so much easier if you are trying to do in-text citations and build bibliographies for papers and proposals. So what I'm going to walk you through today is how to create an account on EndNote, how to download the Cite While You Write plugin for Word, how to install that on your computer, and then how to actually build your libraries within EndNote and Cite in Word. So I will go ahead and share my screen and start walking you through some of these things. Okay, so I am just going to look for a thumbs up that you can see my web browser. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So in the registration, you should have seen a link to create an account on EndNote. So this is a free EndNote web software. So there are various versions of EndNote, but this is free to everybody. So the first step you would do is access that web address and create an account. So you click register. I use my Penn State email address. When you see me log in, you're going to see I'm using the very old version of the Penn State email address at HMC. But you would just log in once you've created an account. Super easy to do. And then the first thing you're going to do once you get into EndNote, you're going to see an empty screen because you don't yet have a library. So you're going to click on the Downloads tab. And depending on which operating system you're using, you would download the Windows or the Macintosh version of Cite While You Write. So I'm not going to walk through this since I already have it downloaded on my computer, but it's a really simple process. So download, and then I was able to install Cite While You Write, but some of you may need admin access, which means you're going to have to make a call to IT and have them get into your computer to do that. So it takes a minute or two, but that is a step that you may need to take. So once that's downloaded and installed, it will not show up as a tab in Word until you've restarted your computer. So you want to download the plugin, get it installed. You may need to use IT as support, and then you're going to restart your computer. So once you've restarted your computer, and you open a Word document, you should see a tab that says EndNote. So once you get in here, you're first going to go to Preferences. You're going to click on Application, and this is what's going to connect your Word with your EndNote library. So the application we're using is EndNote Online. I believe the default when you download the plugin is EndNote. So you're going to want to make sure that you select EndNote Online. You're going to enter the web address of EndNote, and then you're going to enter your account information. So again, this is what's going to connect Word with your library, your EndNote library. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, so now I'm going to get to the good stuff. So within EndNote, and I do want to make a disclaimer, I am not an expert on EndNote, far from it. I'm just going to show you how I have used it, the very basic functions. There may be way more functionality that I'm not aware of, but this is really just a beginner crash course. So there's a couple of tabs to point out in EndNote. So my references is going to be where all of your references are located. So you can see I have a number of references in my account because I've been using this for quite a long time. You will, and I'll walk through how to import references, but what you see here, I have a number of references that are unfiled, meaning I haven't added them to any groups. So typically you want to create a group when you're writing a paper or a proposal. So you can see my groups down here. A number of papers that I've worked on, also a number of proposals that I've worked on. And so I just typically store those references within those individual groups. But what you're seeing here are all of my unfiled references, and not sure why they aren't in a group, but there you have it, 187. So this is where you're going to see all your references. So how do you get the references in there? So there's a couple of ways to do this, and I'm going to show you my favorite ways to do this. So you're going to click on the Collect tab. There's 3 ways. So you can do an online search. You can add a reference manually using New Reference, or you can import references. Online search is going to connect to PubMed. So you can connect this way. You can search, so you can see I was searching for our fearless leader, Jen Krasniewski. So I'm looking for any papers that she is listed as an author in. And I'm going to do a search. And you're going to see all of the papers that she is listed as a co-author. So I might decide, oh, yep, this is the one I was looking for. I also want Chelsea's paper, Matt Nudi's paper, Dr. Kalo. Okay, so I have all of those, and I'm going to add them to a group. I don't see the group I need here. I need to create a new group. So I'm going to go to new group, and I'm going to list this as my EndNote training group. And then you're going to see that group listed down here, EndNote training. All of those references I just added are right here. Another way to do this is to list this yourself. This is my least favorite way because it ends up being once you add it to Word, you're going to see a lot of errors. It has to be really entered perfectly. So I would never suggest this as a method. If you're entering a journal article, you will need to use this if you're doing a blog or a book or a website. And so once you click on the reference type, you're going to enter as much information as you have about that reference. And that once you enter all of the information, you'll click save. I'm not going to walk through this right now. Again, it's my least favorite way. But that being said, if you can't find your article on PubMed, you'll probably have to enter it manually. So how do you import references? Well, this is the way that I use most often. So if you were to go to PubMed, a lot of times when you're writing a paper, you're not going to cite while you're writing. You're going to highlight the text that you want to cite, and you're going to drop a comment in the margin and enter the citation that you use there. So once you're ready to cite, you can go back, or you want to add them to your EndNote library. You can copy and paste that right into PubMed. I'm just going to search Krasniewski again, easiest thing for me to do here. And it's going to pull up all of the papers that she's listed as an author on. So within PubMed, okay, so I definitely want Alicia Hoch's paper here. I probably also want this one, and let's see if there's any others that I want. Yep, I want Jennifer Moss's paper too. So I'm going to select all of those, and then I'm going to send them to my clipboard. And then you can see it pops up right under the search bar. They're stored on your clipboard. You can also see that it expires after 8 hours of inactivity. So that will stay in there. You can come back to it throughout the day and add additional references. So now I'm going to search this. It probably won't come up for me because I have a very common last name, but let's say we want this one and we also need this one. I'm going to send those to the clipboard, and it just keeps adding to the clipboard. So if you have 60 references, you're writing a paper and you have 60 references and you need all of those to come into EndNote, this is really a great way to do it. You can search them in PubMed, add them as you find them right to the clipboard. Okay, well, now I'm ready. I have all of my references. So now I'm going to send them to my citation manager. So what happens there is, okay, create a file for citation management software. I want every single result that I put in the clipboard, and I'm going to create a file. That adds this file to your downloads. When you go back to EndNote, now I want to import them. I'm going to choose the file that I just downloaded. The import option is PubMed. That's where I pulled them from. And I'm going to put these in my EndNote training group. And 5 references were imported. I'm going to go and make sure. If I click on EndNote training, yes, they are all there. Any questions about importing references? Okay, so we have a question about creating the group. It looks like that was from a couple of minutes ago. So how you create the group, there's a couple of different ways. Really, I'm not sure if you can create a group until you're ready to store your references in something. So I think you need to start with a reference. So if I were importing, I'm going to go back. So let's say I just started in PubMed. I don't have a group. I need to pull these into a new group. I'm going to select my import option. I can create a new group right from here, or I can add to an existing group. Same thing when I do an online search. I can also keep them unfiled, and then I can select them from my unfiled list. You can sort by added to library, newest to oldest, so I can see which ones I just added. If I select add to group and I want to create a new group from here, I just scroll all the way down to the bottom and select new group, and that will create a new group. It's not 100% necessary to have a group created for every single paper or proposal that you're writing, unless you plan to share these groups with other EndNote users. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So if you go into Organize, so next tab over from Collect, and click on Manage My Groups, this is a list of all of my groups. It tells you the number of references within each group. So let's say I want to share my EndNote training references with somebody else. I'm going to check Share. I'm going to click Manage Sharing. Start sharing this group, and then I just enter the email addresses. You can see that you can enter multiple. You can use enter or return to separate the addresses. You can offer them read-only access or read and write access. And what this means is now they have access if you're working on a proposal with other users, or if you're working on a paper with others, they all have access to the same group of references. So whether they need to pull the bibliography for something, or whether they're helping you cite while you write, now everybody has access to all of those references. So that's a good reason to have references stored within a group. You can also view others' groups. So at one point, I was working on a proposal with external users, and this is a group that they had shared with me. So it shows that I have a number of my own groups that I'm sharing with others, and this is the only reference group that others are sharing with me. For my type A people, finding duplicates is, is something I go through often, and I address those. So sometimes, as you're adding your references, you may forget that you added one or two, and so you can go through and find duplicates, select your duplicates, and just delete them. I do that sometimes just because I'm a little type A about keeping my references clean, but it won't mess you up either way. You can have duplicates of every reference and it really won't make any difference. So then the other thing that you can do in here is create a bibliography. So let's say I'm looking at creating a bibliography for my EndNote training. There's probably 1,000 different styles in here. So you're going to find that you're going to use the style that's required by your journal or by the funding agency through which you're submitting your proposal. So let's just say I'm going to use NIH and I just want a plain text file. And this is going to create my bibliography with me. So I can share that with others, you know, as I'm working, but that's your reference list. Other things in here, I don't really use these tabs. The match tab, as you can see, that just takes you to an external site. This is going to be just your profile information. And again, the downloads is the Cite While You Write download. So before I go over to show you how to actually cite within Word, I want to stop and see if there's any other questions. Okay, is it possible to search? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Erica, so if I have a Word file on my laptop or on my desktop, can I transfer those references back into the library?
So I have not done that. I'm sure that there's a way. So if I have, I'm not 100% sure on that one. I was playing around with this earlier, and I felt like maybe there was a way to do that, but I'm not aware. There was another question here. Let me see. Is it possible to search references in and import them from a database other than PubMed? So there is. I believe that at this version of EndNote, the options are a little bit limited. That being said, if you're in another database and you download, a lot of them have a link to say export to Citation Manager, and so it's possible that format will upload right into EndNote, but I know that using this free version, there are some limitations. So I think if you were to follow a very similar format where you would send to Citation Manager, it would create a download and you can attempt to import it that way. Okay, so once we have all of our citations, how do we actually put this in Word? So a couple of things I want to mention before I show you how this is done. Because there is certain coding within EndNote and Cite While You Write, it's really important to make sure that your paper is nearly complete before you take this step. Because if you were to be moving pieces of text around, the references don't necessarily update while you're doing that. So I always say, save this part for very close to the end before you start citing. Okay, so we are connected to our EndNote library in Preferences, EndNote Online, and I have all of my login credentials there. So this is the first statement that I'd like to cite. So on the EndNote tab, I go to Insert Citations, and I can search for any citation. Typically, I search by author. You can definitely search by title, but for the purposes of this seminar, I'm just searching by Jen Krasniewski. So I'm going to add, I think this is the citation I needed, so I'm going to insert that. So keep in mind that you can change your style. So I'm using the NIH style. But if you need another style for whatever, again, whatever paper or funding agency that you're submitting to, there's endless styles in here. If you click on one and you just start typing, it will jump down to the to where it's at. Oh, I said 1,000, 4,838 styles. Who knew there were that many? Okay, so I'm using the NIH style. So you'll see that what happened here, and let me see if I can shrink that down a little bit. So the citation style for this one gives me a superscript number, and then the reference will end all the way at the end of your paper. So if my paper were 10 pages long, these citations, the reference itself would end up on page 11. So I only have a short paragraph here, so it just puts it right after. Other styles may do author and year. It just depends. So then the second piece of literature I need to cite is right here. And for this one, I need me, Francis. Okay, I'm gonna put that in there. And then this statement here pulls literature from many different sources. So I need every paper that Jen has ever written. So I'm going to hold the control and just select all of them. Oh, okay. So you can see there, pretty straightforward. It lists 3 to 10, and then all of the references end up at the end of the paper. So this piece is the most fun. It just is it's my favorite part. So that's how you get your citations in there. Now, if you're going to send this paper, this document to others, and there still needs to be some revisions, you really shouldn't send this version, because, like I said, if you were to cut and paste and say, okay, this one here, I actually need this to go here. You can see that the citation doesn't update, even if you click update. Oh, it does update. Look at that. I tried it earlier and it didn't. Okay, so it will update. It does get a little bit messy. So my recommendation is always make sure the paper or the proposal is nearly complete before you start doing this. There's no guarantees. Okay, so once you're ready to send this in, okay, I'm submitting this to NIH, or I'm going to circulate it back to my co-authors and just make sure there's no final edits needed. You really should send them the Word or the text version and not the version that has all of the EndNote coding in it. So in order to do that, you would click Convert Citations and Bibliography and convert to plain text. And then you always want to save your EndNote version. So typically I'll save my paper and then just add EndNote. And then you want to save your text references version. Once you have converted to plain text, you can't convert back. So you have to keep that EndNote version somewhere on your computer in the event that you have to go back in and update your references. The other reason that you would want to convert to plain text is because I can't go in here and edit anything from here. Let's say that this was a reference that I imported myself and it's not A. Murray, it should be F. Murray. If I do that, it's not going to save. And so you really can't edit within the EndNote version. You have to convert it to text. Now, let's say you thought that you needed the NIH style, but really they wanted APA 5th. All you have to do is go through and select that, and it automatically updates that style for you. If you need to edit your citations, there's a couple of ways to do that. So if you click on edit, you can go in right here and you can edit. So if you click, well, let me back up. If you click edit, it will take you right back to your EndNote library and it will ask you to update it within the library. It will not automatically update in EndNote, so you have to come in here and say update from my library. So that's why it's really important to make sure that your references are really well pulled together within EndNote before you start doing this. And a good way to check that is to download that bibliography like I showed you, so you can look through and see how they're going to show up in your paper. But if you do need to make edits, there are ways to do that. Okay, So I really like the superscript. So I'm going to convert back to that. Let me see. I think that pretty much covers it. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing. But I see there's a couple more questions. Okay, Abby, thank you. Scopus has an export to an RIS file. Is there a way to format your bibliography text style and size? Yes. So the best way to do that is to work within your plain text file. So this command will create a new copy of your Word document and remove all special EndNote markers. So they do give you a warning. The original file will remain opened and untouched. Yes, I do want to continue. So within the text file, now you can say, okay, I don't like that space between the one and Dr. Kalo's name. So I'm going to just get rid of that. Or I want to make sure that I have a space between every single reference. So you can go in and change them in the text file once you're ready to go. Just keep in mind that you can't convert this back to the EndNote version. So you really need to save both. And then the text version, again, is the one that's going to be submitted. So that's going to be submitted to your paper. That's going to be submitted to your funder. Yes. Okay.
From in the room. So I know when you submit a proposal, it cannot have external links to additional things like people's publications, for example. So if you accidentally submit the EndNote version, will that show up, like will ORA flag that as external links and ask you to submit the text version?
I would like to think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So
Yeah.
always err on the side of caution and save the text version.
Always.
before uploading it. Okay.
Yes.
And then a second question, so when you converted from the NIH format to the AMA format, the citation shows up after the period now in your actual paragraph. Is there an easy way to move that to before the period? Or would that all have to be like manually shifted?
Yep, you can shift it.
Okay, but you would have to do it manually for each
Mhm.
reference. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Any other questions from Zoom attendees? Okay, Kelsey has another question.
If you're working with a co-author who has the desktop version of EndNote and you share your big bibliography with them, will it still work between the desktop version and the web version?
I haven't tried that. My initial thoughts are no. And the only reason I think that is because early on when I started using this version, Jen Krasniewski used the desktop version and ours did not communicate very well at all. So I'm not sure.
Just
Okay.
something to be aware of.
Yes, definitely something to be aware of. What are the advantages of the paid version? So I am not sure because I've never used the paid version. The only thing that I can think is that there's just additional features and I don't know what those features are. Is EndNote 20 or other version downloadable from PSU? Is there a cost associated? So I can only assume EndNote 20 is maybe the paid version. I would assume that that is downloadable from PSU. I have just full transparency. This is the only version of EndNote I've ever used. And I had, the only reason is that years and years ago, I took part in a training through our library and this is the version that they recommended. So that's the version that I've stuck with. And again, I do very basic citation management just in proposals and papers. So not very, very large projects. I mean, so this has worked really, really well for me.
Erica,
Yes.
this is, the EndNote 20 version, which I assume then is the paid version. I'm not sure we paid for it, but I think you can get it through software downloads or whatever the website is. It is really, really, really very simple to use. It makes life so much easier because you end up creating an EndNote. So let's say you've got your paper written and you've got a list of references, you've got your EndNote, you create an EndNote library per se, it sort of automatically goes to a library, and then you can search each paper that you want from PubMed or other sources, and you get an in commas a pop-up button that you just press and it imports it and puts it into that citation. It puts the citation exactly where you want it, and then it stays updated throughout the publication, creates your bibliography right at the end, and you don't end up going through this process of creating a separate document, a sort of reference, and so on. So if you're writing frequent papers, I would say it's worth the cost of getting that version once. I have also found that if you get stuck on something, and let's say I frequently forget how to import a chapter or list a book chapter or want to list a particular something, and I can't find it on PubMed, you can call Clarivate up, and literally they answer within a couple of minutes, and they will literally walk you through the process. Their customer service is awesome. So just wanted to put that out there. If you're writing a number of papers, and if your papers are frequently on the same topics, you can keep all of your references in the same library. And then just like you did in this way, you can just click on the one you want and cite it wherever you want on your paper.
Yeah, thank you for that. I am sure that the other versions of EndNote have different functionality, and I would encourage anybody to explore all of these versions for whatever purposes they might have. For me, I haven't written too many papers. I've written a lot of proposals, but this has worked well for me. I agree. If you're doing a lot of writing and you're dealing with very, very large bibliographies and you're writing citing similar papers, then this may not be the version for you. But I think a lot of the same principles will apply no matter which version of EndNote you're using. And so I think, the takeaway is there's an easier way than doing it by hand and updating those in-text citations as you are writing. So, yeah, but thank you for saying that. I really haven't looked into any other version because this one has served me well. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Erica, just a question. Once you convert your document into the text form, can you add additional references over there?
So, absolutely you can. So what it would require though, let's say you have 70 references and you need to add in a reference after reference 21. What that would require, you wouldn't be able to do it through EndNote, you would have to do it manually. So you would have to add in that reference 22 and then update every reference throughout the text manually, and then update your reference list manually. So the way that I do it, I actually just worked on some of these citations for a proposal, and I had to go back and do it 3 times, which is okay. I kept the EndNote version. And so when additional references came in, all I had to do was go back to the EndNote version and add in those references. Now, there were some edits made to the document by adding those references. And so there's a really nice feature in Word where you can compare 2 versions and it will show you all of the edits. The edits were minor, so I was able to apply those edits to my EndNote version, add in the new references, and then my bibliography updated and I converted it back to text. So if you were to choose to add in a reference to the text version, it would all be manual at that point. The only version you can add in and then expect everything to update would be that original EndNote version that you saved.
Erica, that's exactly what EndNote 20 and 21 will do. Let's say you created your first bibliography with 20 references, and you've got them cited wherever you want in the paper. And then you go in and you add a new reference at, let's say, point number 4, after you've got your 4th reference in there, and you add a new number 5. It will automatically change all of your numbers after that. It will automatically update it, and you don't have to do anything manually. That's why for people who are writing papers and you cite papers and then you come to a, I think this is a better paper that I want to cite, or you want to change a reference, you can delete that one and just go to the exact spot on the document where you want to insert it. Insert the reference, everything after that will automatically get updated and numbered correctly.
So if you're doing that within the downloadable version, do you have to convert that to text as well?
No, so literally when you open your Word document and at the top, if you have 20 or 21 installed, in your Word document, on top of the heading, you will have an EndNote reference. So you click open that EndNote, go to the library where the library that you're using for this particular manuscript, and then you start adding papers. And as you start adding the citations, you can insert them wherever you want in the document. Thereafter, if you change a reference, if you add a new reference or you delete a reference, it will automatically fix the whole document for you. And at the end of it, it'll give you a new bibliography with either the new citation you've added or deleting the citation that you want. It literally has changed my life in terms of writing manuscripts and papers. It makes all the difference. And the other thing you mentioned that there were 4,000 or so styles for references. And yet, despite the 4,000 or so styles, new journals come up with new styles and they want it done their way. You can actually import a style into that list as well.
That's nice.
So,
yeah, so
if you were writing for cancers or cells and they have their own particular formatting, they will tell you on their site that you can import this particular site. It's a link, it's a shortcut, and you can import it back into your styles list. And then the next time you cite it, you say, I want to use this format, and it'll automatically format all of your citations.
Yeah, so I wanted to be clear if you're adding a reference and you're in the version of your document that is coded with that EndNote code, so the original version, you haven't converted it to text, and you add in a reference, it'll automatically update. So I think if you're adding references or you're changing references or you're deleting references, you just want to make sure you're working within that file. And then you just, again, in order to submit it, you would just want to convert it to text. Lots of good suggestions in the chat for everybody.
So apparently EndNote is free. It's available. IT can upload, can download it for you.
Yeah, so I would recommend, if this is something you're interested in, if you frequently write papers.
I apologize. I don't mean to take away from your presentation. I'm just saying for some of us, especially where you're writing manuscripts and it's a particular style, the 2021 versions are very helpful in that sense.
Yeah, no, it's great. I started this with a disclaimer that I'm not an expert. I was simply sharing my experience. So I think it's great to, have all of these other options, because everyone is going to need a different platform. So I think it's great to have your expertise to share as well. Like I said, I've never used it, so I can't speak to it. This was simply my experience. So. But great if it's free. I would suggest, everyone kind of using the version that makes the most sense for you. I imagine the process is similar. There's also a lot of information out there, YouTube videos and tutorials for how to do these things within each version. So I would encourage you to look there. And yes, this lecture recording will be sent to everybody. Like I said, I also created sort of a how-to guide if you're using this version, and I can send that out to everybody as well. So yeah, you'll have those to refer back to. Yes, Kelsey.
Just a plug for the online version, if you're ever working on a manuscript on your personal computer and then your work computer, and you do not have the desktop EndNote on your personal computer, because Penn State will not install it for free, having the web version, you can log in on each computer and have your bibliography there.
That's
So-
a great point. So if you didn't hear that, Kelsey mentioned that if you're working on different computers that don't have EndNote installed, you would be able to access EndNote online from any computer that you're working on. So just something to keep in mind if you tend to jump between computers for any reason, EndNote Online travels to all of them. Okay, well, thank you all so much for your attention. Thank you all for the great questions and comments, and I will give you 15 minutes back to finish out your lunch hour. And thank you all so much for your time and attention. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.